coming to session number 2. We have Joe Lippert from Iowa Central Community College. This is information about Backline, which I see way too many forwards in here, and actually a lot of backs. So how come the backs don't know about the Backline? But since I don't know anything about that, we brought Joe in. He's going to tell you all about the Backline.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. I'm Joe Lippert. I'm from Wisconsin originally. I grew up in the rural part of the state, right in the middle of a little town called Pittsville. My family's a dairy farm. Rugby sort of taking me all over the world, but I want to thank you for being here. And let's talk Backline. I have most of my career, and most primarily I play. Oh no, not this again. Primarily I play in the backs. The last few years I've shifted a lot more towards forwards. So that's my background. Let's get into it. I'm going to lead with a paraphrase statement, and if it bothers anyone, I was coaching an all-star team last week. I was having a good talk with a professional coach, gentleman who's coached at the international level, and someone asked him, what is the best rugby advice you've ever been given? And he said, as a coach, oh no, not this. Okay, we're having display issues. You know, absolutely worst case, I'm just gonna, I'll just do this on the whiteboard, but we're having display issues here. No, don't worry about it. Okay, I'll freestyle. All right, he said, you've got to urinate with the genitals you got. And he said that in a more uncouth way and stuff, but the gist of it is you need to deal with the tools you have. So that's as a coach, all right? We've got to deal with the pieces we have. That's what we've got to use. Also, as a player, same thing. I'm not going to, if you're slow, you're not suddenly going to become fast. You can get faster, you can get stronger, but you have certain skill sets that you have and you can develop, but you've got to deal with what you have as from a skill set perspective. I thought Tyson and I had this worked out ahead of time. So first, space and general needs is the first thing I cover. As a backline, we have lots of space to work with. So our ability to identify that, react accordingly. So that means opportunities in space. That also means potential weaknesses and problems.
Everybody, boom!
Sorry. Thank you.
So this distinguished coach said this a bit differently, but you got to deal with what you got. So we've got lots of space. All right. Recognizing that, whether that's in attack or defense, and then reacting accordingly, but also communicating that as a unit is super critical. So in attack, we're usually going to talk about exploiting space. In defense, we're usually going to talk about minimizing space. And being able to do that as a unit is really the most important thing. No rugby players are an island unto themselves. We've got to function as a unit as a backline. So requirements, general needs from a backline perspective, link and play together. When I say link, in a lot of cases, it's a player either side. For some of us, halfbacks in particular, we have to have other links, okay? Sometimes you're 15 who's back there playing center field on defense, they need to link all over at times. But oftentimes linking, especially as an inside center, am I linked with my Flyhalf? Am I linked with my outside center? We're good to go. All right, communication. More critical at some positions, but an absolute non-negotiable to play rugby effectively. Most critical in the outside channels is speed. Can oftentimes get away with a Flyhalf, a Scrumhalf who maybe doesn't have that sprinter speed. Your 13 channel, when we get there in particular, or your wingers finishing, if you've got a 13 who can't cover space, who can't turn quickly, change directions, we're going to be in trouble. One-on-one tackling ability as well. Same thing with the forwards. A tight fiber, we get a lot of double tackles. All right, a lot of 1.5, a lot of 2-man tackles. One-on-one tackling ability at most backline positions is absolutely critical. And then the general passing and kicking. Some positions, passing is more critical. I would say wingers, if there's one position that is less critical, having that ability, good. If you don't have someone who can't pass but they're fast, probably toss them on the wing. And then of course hair and banter. We know the backs are good looking. A lot of jokes about hair gel. The hair and banter is good. All right, so, and I'm going to go through kind of position by position. Again, I'm talking about ideals, what I'm looking for in a recruit, and what I want to develop my players individually towards. You're probably not going to have a whole team where all your players fit this. Again, you've got to work with what you've got. You've got to fit your game plan to be successful towards the personnel you've got. I'm going to talk about spine of the team with a few positions. All right, spine of the team, 2, 8, 9, 10, 15. Runs right through the middle. Okay, oftentimes there are specific skills for these positions, and they're connectors and communicators. All right, general, taskmaster. They've got to demand work rate and proper positioning. All right, if your scrum half or fly half isn't communicative, we have problems as a team. Physically, can be short. You will see oftentimes they are. At the international level, some scrum halves get up to be about 6'1", 6'2", but generally scrum halves are short. Generally, they're quick. Being quick and fast helps. Quickness, I would say more so than actual speed, and core strength. Because of proximity to breakdown, if you've got a good forward pack, hopefully your scrum half stays out of that contact stuff. But due to the mess that scrum halves are often close to at the breakdown, core strength is critical for any athlete and any rugby player. But specifically in the backline, if there's one player that we want to make sure is really balanced and really strong in the core, it's going to be that scrum half. Mentally, they need to be tough. All right, they need to have really good game management and rugby knowledge. Again, with that spine of the team, that rugby knowledge, game management, pretty critical. All right, we don't want someone who doesn't know what's going on and who can't move people around, can't make a good decision for the time in the game it is. Ability to lead, willingness to be vocal, take ownership of forward play, and connection with first receivers. So the first receiver oftentimes is a forward pod. It may be a fly half. The first receiver, a lot of times good teams will have their 12-step in. Then we can break our back line in half. The 12 steps in to be one first receiver. We keep a 10 short side or something with the winger. All right, being able to connect with whoever that first receiver is, both verbally and visually, and then getting the ball there quickly, really critically. Passing ability. I want all caps with it because it's straightforward. The one player who touches the ball more than anyone is the scrum half. They've got to be able to pass. The ball has to get from A to B quickly, accurately. Kicking helps, very much so. Sometimes if you have a good kicker at the 10 position or an inside center or a 15, you can get away with the scrum half. It's not a good kicker, but it certainly helps. Be able to move the pieces around the field. Cleanup tackles and vision. So when I say cleanup tackles, does anyone, what do you do with your sweeper or with your scrum half defensively? Anyone want to? What's that? They sweep. They sweep. What do you mean by sweeper?
They're in between the fullback and the defensive line.
Good answer. Yeah, they need to be tight. They generally you want them behind the breakdown and then following the ball inside to out. I'm hopefully going to finish this up early, so we have specific questions. I'm a big fan of that scrum half being tighter. Rather than being back at 10, 12, 15, that scrum half just needs to win like a little chip through or anything. They need to win the race to that little chip through, or they need to make that cleanup tackle in particular. Line break, if they're 10, 12 meters off of that, behind that defensive line, what's going to happen is that line break happens, and that ball carrier has the opportunity to react, take a couple steps, step the scrum half, make the extra pass. If they're tight to the line, the line break is 2 steps and it's over. And that ball carrier doesn't have that additional time. So I'm a big fan of that scrum half in that cleanup position, that like second level sweeper, being pretty tight to the breakdown and tight to that defensive line as it comes back. And then kind of in summary, in partnership with the fly half, nines can play an outsized role in the success or failure of a rugby team. Ability to manage a game and exploit in attack or mitigate in defense opportunities is mission critical. Great halfbacks can elevate mediocre teams or drag down talented teams. Clean service, clear communication. If your scrum half can't get hit his first receivers, we're going to struggle as a team regardless of what we have in those other channels. All right, fly half, another spine of the team sort of position. Okay, move pieces around. Fly half has a bit more vision due to their distance. Scrum half is right in the stuff. He's focused on his forwards mostly and just the first receiver. Fly half can move those pieces around. All right, distribute, critical. Field position and line speed coordinator. Usually, hopefully your flankers are going to help your fly half, but usually that fly half is going to be that third-ish channel, third, fourth channel out from that breakdown. They coordinate that line speed. The post defender, they're the ones who can stare right at the ball. The fly half's got to be checking his mark. Everyone's always checking their mark defensively. But as far as line speed coordination with those outside channels, that comes from the 10. If the 10 doesn't have line speed, we have problems. All right, and everyone from the fly half, we want to keep a cohesive line speed, especially with the next two in the line. Usually you're inside and outside centers. Physical height does help. It's like a tall quarterback. You can see more. All right, you sit in a pocket behind a breakdown. I can see what's going on. I feel vision of that backfield. All right, to a point, you can be a short fly half and still be effective. But height to a point is helpful. Eyesight. If you're blind, you can't see what's going on way back there. You can't read a field if you're blind. All right, a prop can play the whole game by feel practically. A fly half needs to be able to see, needs to be able to make decisions based on what they're seeing. Reaction time, quick feet, hip and core strength as well. And a lot of that hip and core strength comes into their role as a kicker. All right, a lot of times a fly half, or we're going to catch, we're going to pivot and drive, whether that's driving a pass, whether that's driving through our step. All right, that hip strength and core strength to both our effectiveness at kicking and our ability to be a ball carrier or change direction, both personally or change direction of attack, very critical. Mental, cool, calm temperament. All right, if your fly half is all game long in his own head, does anyone know the red-blue thing that the All Blacks are famous for? Anyone? Raise your hand. Okay, so blue is like a calm, cool demeanor. This is like I'm focused, I'm task focused. Red is like fired up. All right, so flankers could probably want to be a little more red than your halfbacks. All right, your 10, 90+% of the time needs to be in that blue zone. Maybe gets riled up once or twice for a very specific reason, but needs to go right back to that blue zone because they need to be able to make good rational decisions. All right, that goes ability to lead, decision making, game management, just like a Scrumhalf. Are we making the right decision at the right part of the park? Are we making the right decision at the right stage of the game? And are we managing a lead? Are we trying to make a play coming from behind? Are we trying to close out a half, lead a game the right way, lead a half the right way? The time of game and the decisions we make as far as game management matters. Got to be vocal and take ownership of the backline playing territorial battle. If we're not playing in the right places in the park, probably something the fly half needs to own and improve. They're probably not doing their job as well as they could. Right? And then recognize and exploit or minimize opportunities. Now, hopefully that information is coming into the fly half from outside of them, but ultimately it's going to go through that fly half. And after the scrum half, this is probably the person who touches the ball the most. All right, and then connection with the 9 and the other members of the backline. All right, so that first receiver, very important, but also being able to connect with my outside center on a skip pass, being able to connect with my inserting 15, being able to defensively connect with my winger because I got to drop back and cover something. All right, being able to be dynamic with our connections with our other players, other members of the backline in particular, sometimes the forwards, super important. Pass, kick, facilitate. That's a fly half's job, essentially. And then one-on-one tackling, because a good team is going to target your fly half. If you're a fly half, at some point you play enough, you're probably used to an 8-man attack. You're probably used to the opposition taking a pop pass and running straight at you. Because if we can disrupt your 9 or your 10, we're going to disrupt your team. All right, so one-on-one tackling ability and that ability to chop a big player who's coming right at you, very important. Again, outside role and success or failure of a team. Elevate mediocre teams, drag down a talented team. Got to set the defensive back line and determine the line speed. They're also the person who says, hey, we're down 2 people, slow our roll. Take 2 steps. We call it a tread at Iowa Central, where we're going to play inside out. We're going to give ground. We're going to use that sideline as an extra defender. The best person placed for that is usually the fly half. Hopefully that information is coming in from the outside, but oftentimes the fly half is the one that needs to set that line speed and then keep that defensive structure. And then again, clean service, clear communication. The fly half's job is to make sure the pieces get moved around and the ball goes to where it needs to. All right, I'm gonna have this just so I make sure I stay on my own time. Hammer versus distributor. So this is an interesting thing. I would say at the international level, top international teams, England off, sometimes New Zealand often, but it changes personnel-wise. A lot of really good teams have a distributor at their 12. A lot of us in American rugby put a big unit at center. They can both be effective, but recognize that there's a difference in the strategy you're playing. Are you sending someone who could easily be in an 8-man, a forward or something? Are you sending them down the channel and trying to get go forward ball, or do we want a second fly half? Again, this is personnel driven. What is your strengths? What sort of style do you want to play to maximize team effectiveness? Linking to the outside backs. All right, this is the inside center is kind of the last of the inside backs. So being able to successfully connect our inside backs to the wide channel, really important. Support. A lot of decisions get made as far as, do I need to go wide with this wide ball and ruck it, or do I need to stay out and be ready for the next phase? And then defensively, they've got to make their time. I mean, that's like the core of your inside defensive line, is that inside center. It's really difficult to play effectively if we've got a poor tackler at inside center. It's great that they can run and get go forward ball, but if we're struggling to make tackles in that channel, we're going to struggle. Those centers defensively, they're tough channels to defend. It's important we have good tacklers who can make tackles quickly and capably. So put the body on the line. Kind of flows into that. If we're soft, we're not willing to use our shoulder, we can't get our hips behind our shoulders and make strong tackles, we're going to struggle. Communication is kind of that link coming in from the information to the outside. It's also a great position, because we're right off of that first receiver often, to be opportunistic. There's a gap, first receiver takes the defender, just run an unders line, pop pass, we're through the gap. Does that make sense? Cool. Really it's an opportunistic position, because as the game flows, as we get 3, 4, multiple phases deep, all of a sudden, that third, fourth channel, all of a sudden it's open. Perfect time for the inside center to just, nope, put them through the gap, because you know that first receiver is going to absorb that primary defender. Line break right there at 12. Hard-nosed, collaborative intelligence. So oftentimes an inside center kind of needs to be a Swiss Army knife. All right, know them. Are they a hammer? Are they a distributor? In a perfect world, they'd be a big person as a distributor. But collaborative intelligence and being able to be flexible and work with others, really important. At any position in rugby, rugby's a collaborative game, but in particular at inside center. It's the end of the inside backs. It's kind of where the outside backs begin. It's kind of that outside shoulder of that inside center. So being able to collaborate, be flexible, and be opportunistic with reading what's in front of us and moving the pieces, my link either side around, very important. Passing, ball carrying, line running. We don't really talk about line running with Scrumhalf and Flyhalf. There's opportunities for Scrumhalfs and Flyhalfs to run lines, but it's not a primary job. Your centers, we better run really good lines. All right? Picking the gap, picking the soft shoulder, picking do we want to run an overs or an unders? Are we targeting a specific player on the opposition? Doubles. 10 and 12, we can get double tackles. Double tackles, if we can do them defensively, and then our other defenders can move around that breakdown, really effective. It's a lot easier to make a positive tackle if 2 people are doing it. Okay, so most of the time in the back line, we're making one-on-one tackles. In a 12 and 10 position in particular, we can generate some double tackles. And being effective with double tackles means our defense is going forward. All right, we go back to principles of play. A big one, go forward. Kicking, really helpful. If we're not just kicking from 10, if we can move the ball, make a backfield adjust, and then kick the ball, really helpful. So having a 12 who can kick, I would take a 12 who can kick and distributes and make good decisions over a hammer every single day. All right, being able to move that ball, that second pass, and then hook the kick in, really helpful. Collaborative abilities, general support, and intelligent ruck involvement. If our 12 is going to those wide channels and getting in a ruck that is clearly that the outside backs or my wide flanker or whatever is taken care of, waste of personnel, one less that we can use to attack the next 2 phases. If they're able to recognize, hey, I need to get there, we're down, I need to ruck that wide channel, I need to ruck my 13s ball, super important. So again, back to the hammer distributor, they might be a physical line runner or they might be a fleet-footed distributor. It's a position where you can get away with someone who isn't straight line fast. All right? Are they brave? Are they rugby smart? Can they distribute the ball? Run good lines? Can be effective without being a sprinter. All right, maybe not so much as we get to those real outside channels. The ability of the inside center to partner. Oh no. Ability of the inside center to partner with the fly half and the outside center determines much of our continuity and effectiveness. All right, that link, if it's broken, we're going to struggle. We're not going to get the ball to the show ponies out wide. All right, there's got to be a rocking defense, and whatever the halfbacks are calling, the intention of those inside backs that move the pieces around, that touch the ball the most, being able to translate those inside back intentions to outside back movements, whether that's in attack or defense, really important. They're a translator between those show ponies out wide, who should always be hungry for the ball, and those cool operators on the inside. All right, outside center. This is really where the outside backs truly start. This is the toughest channel to defend as far as I'm concerned. If anyone would like to present a reason why, like a channel that's tougher to defend than that, maybe if you got Jonah Lomu across from you or something, but the ability of your 13 to be able to defend that channel and make really quick decisions defensively, like this is hard. Make or break plays. The 13 is oftentimes where plays either die or where they really kick off. And that's in both defense and attack. It's a really difficult channel to defend. It takes some physical requirements as far as ability to change directions quickly and ability to close space. So quickness, speed, change directions quickly, foot speed. 13, it's nice if they can finish. They don't have to. If they can make the finishing pass, if they're really quick, decisive, hey, we make the decision, close the space, I'm quick, but I'm not sprinter fast, you can get away with it. But that decisiveness and that ability to defend that channel is really going to determine, do we give up those big plays in the wide channel, or do we keep pressure on, or do we keep moving forward with our defensive backline phases? Collaboration with the inside center and the wide channels, they've got to see and adjust. They're wide enough that there's a little bit more vision, and they're usually at least 2 passes away from the action defensively or an attack. Rarely are you going to have a ball come from a ruck straight to an outside center or straight to a place that an outside center is defending, other than in a chaos situation. So being able to see what's going on, make a decision, and adjust accordingly, or adjust as the game progresses, really critical for that 13 channel. Knowing when. That could be attack, defense, knowing when to give ground, knowing when to blitz up and kill an attacking phase. Knowing when is really important. We think of 9s and 10s as decision makers, but a 13 making good decisions and having that instinct to, I've got to go now, or I've got to give ground and I've got to get my inside with me and I've got to get my outside to give ground, that knowing when is really important in that critical channel. They got to cover for the inside backs too. Sometimes 10, 12 might blow a tackle or might just not be there. They got caught in the mess. Being able to cover for them and like move one channel in and cover their role for a phase or something, either in attack or defense, that's that knowing when, hey, I know when they're stuck, I need to move in, I need to cover that next channel in for a moment. Or vice versa, hey, my fullback is, or my winger is not where they need to be. Instead of going back over here, I need to cover them for just a second to prevent some short side play or something. Right? The edge. All right? Anyone unclear what I mean by the edge? Okay, so this is make or break channel. Like we said, oftentimes a really good skip pass from 10 to 13, we're on the edge. We're into the edge of the outside backs, and usually the pivots on the outside, if we can get the ball quickly to 13, we've usually got at least a half player advantage. You know, they're like covering. A winger's coming up, a fullback's filling, something like that. So being able to understand the movements on the edge and collaborate with that edge and make quick, accurate decisions, super important. And then risk assessment, especially to prevent those home runs, as that it's a tough channel to defend. We need to assess the risks that are in front of us and how do we mitigate those risks, both defense and attack, but in particular defensive risks. Ball carry, line running, just like the inside center. Even if the ball is not going through their hands, being able to run very accurate lines is going to set things up for that player outside of us. Tackling. That's a tough channel to defend. a lot of one-on-one tackles and a lot of tough one-on-one tackles where we cover space quickly, we make a one-on-one, we got to get back involved, all right? Finishing runs and tackles or the finishing pass. So that may be just they hit a gap and they finish because they've got the speed. Oftentimes that means putting a fullback or a winger away. Or being able to kill an attacking phase in defense. Finishing a play, being able to end it at that outside center channel rather than letting that play extend is really important. And then general support and ruck involvement. Kind of similar to 12, they need to know when. They need to know when to get involved. They need to know when they're not needed. Making good decisions as to when to get there, when to get involved, when not to get involved. It's going to determine whether we have that extra player, whether we match up defensively or we're down a player or two. It's going to determine, do we have an overlap or is it just, is it 4-on-4? All right, really that general support, ruck involvement, and making good decisions and timely good decisions, super important. So again, as far as I'm concerned, the toughest defensive assignment on the pitch, they've got to change directions very quickly. They've got to close space and finish plays. And they've got to be decisive, but also really intelligent with risk assessment and decision making. But when they go, they got to go. We make up our mind, we've got to go. Commit to the decision, go with it, deal with the consequences. Hopefully it was the right decision. All right, now we'll go with wingers. Wingers. Again, if there's one position where someone who's physically talented but doesn't have the passing ability, might be a good thing to put them at wing. They've got to finish plays though, especially in attack. But finishing plays, anytime the action gets near them, they need to be finishers in those plays. Solo tackles and find work without giving up that big play or leaving the team vulnerable. Anytime you have a winger who's quiet or doesn't hit the ball, they should probably open their mouth more. Closed mouths don't get fed. If you're not asking for the ball, if that winger is not looking for involvement, they're probably not going to be successful. Maybe if their team is really good, they'll finish some plays because the ball gets out there, but closed mouths don't get fed. So we want a winger to want the ball, and we want a winger to want to get involved in the game. Now that doesn't mean they're flying all over the place and they're leaving their team vulnerable. They need to be intelligent with how they get involved, but they need to be hungry for involvement because they're furthest away. They're probably not going to get involved unless the game comes to them or they impose themselves on the game. So we want players who want the ball, and we want wingers who want the ball, and we've got to want wingers who want to get involved in that game. Whether that's just running a line, making a tackle, whatever, wingers need to crave involvement in the game because inherently, a lot of times they just get forgotten. Also, for those of you that coach at a lower level, it is a good spot to throw someone who's new because it's pretty simple. Flanker, we're talking backs here, but flanker and wing are the real common spots to throw that new player. You know that wing, okay, they're not real sure what's going on. Also, we've got to play with what we have. If we got a new kid who we just need to get them some rugby time and they're not sure what's going on, if your inside backs can help them out, if that 13 can help them out, if that fullback can talk to them, this is a place where if we're deficient from a talent experience perspective, you can kind of get away with hiding someone out there on the way. We don't want to, but if we've got to deal with what we got, we need to be personnel driven. Ultimately, when it comes to game planning, game to game, it is a place we can hide players. So speed, slow wingers, don't score tries, or don't score as many. Quickness, elusiveness, and physicality. So we got to have two of those in our winger. If you're physical, like a big winger, Nadolo, monster, big, he's big and he's fast. Okay, cool. He's got two of them. Or someone who's really quick and really elusive. Maybe they're not sprinter fast, but they can beat one person. They can be an effective winger. All right. So having two of those four, you're good. If you only got one of those four, you're probably going to struggle against good competition. In the perfect world, you'd have all four. A good winger is probably going to have three of them. If you got at least two, you stand a good chance of being a solid winger. They got to be confident. That goes with the demanding work. They're looking for work. Closed mouths not getting fed. A winger, they need to think they're gonna score every time they touch the ball. If they don't have confidence, unless it's that situation where we're hiding a player, if they're not confident, they're probably not going to crave involvement that way. They're probably not going to be decisive with things, and they're not going to influence the game the way we want a winger to. Also with that, communication. All rugby players, we need to collaborate, we need to communicate. Being willing to open your mouth and talk with those around you and stay linked, whether that's fullback, outside center, the random loose forward, or whoever ends up with you, being collaborative and communicating. We can't be a good rugby player if we don't open our mouths. Discipline. A winger who makes bad decisions and is ill-disciplined is going to kill your team. Because depending on our systems, whether we're a back three or a two deep, raise your hand if you play a back three where your wingers shift back to cover. Raise your hand. Anyone play two deep? Does anyone not know the difference? Raise your hand if you don't know the difference. Okay, cool. All right. If they're ill-disciplined, they're going to leave. That winger is going to leave you vulnerable. All right. An intelligent risk taking. If we're taking stupid risks, we're going to leave our team vulnerable. If we take intelligent risks and we demand the ball and seek involvement in the game, that winger is going to be a net benefit to the team. So solo tackling, paramount. Like most backline players, a lot of one-on-one tackles. If you can't make a one-on-one tackle, we're vulnerable. Ball carrying, line running, the link with the 13, the 15, and the wide channel forwards. All right? Again, 12, my links are 10, 13, and maybe sometimes the scrum half or forward, but it's pretty straightforward. The wing, the 15, the 10, the 9, a little more collaborative, and there's sometimes a change in where our links are. All right? And then defensive awareness. That kind of goes with are we leaving ourselves vulnerable? Are we aware of what's going on defensively as a group? The wingers control the far edges, and they need a healthy dose of confidence. Open field tackling and awareness communication defensively are important. They've got to be intelligently decisive and take high percentage risks. We all know speed kills. All right, fast players finish plays on offense in particular. All right, fullback. This is kind of the tailbone of the spine, or the top of the cervical, top of the cervicals. They've got the best vision on the field. All right, in defense in particular, but through most of the game, if your fullback with depth, therefore means a bigger picture. Therefore means they're the defensive eyes and the megaphone of the team. So along with the scrum half on defense, that fullback's the one who's moving people around. That's who's hopefully telling people to drop, to get around the ruck, to fold around that ruck. They've got to cover space quickly, and with good teams, that 15 as well as that 12 can step in and be a first receiver. All right, we can break off to a weak side. We come off the sideline, and maybe in attack, or maybe our fullback can insert to that weak side and step in and be a first receiver. Hopefully, they can finish too. We can cover space quickly. We can insert and run good lines. Hopefully that 15 has that finishing ability. All right. Whereas the winger needs just essential total confidence. The fullback, we need just maybe a little more tempered with a bit more rationality compared to that winger. Just give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. I'm going to finish every time I touch it. Speed, ability to change direction and cover space quickly, kind of like 13, but even more so. There's a lot of space to cover. So getting from A to B quickly, pretty important. If your 15 can't cover space quickly, your team's in trouble and vulnerable, especially to kicks, but also on the defensive edges. Reaction time, tactical physicality, and then being able to catch and finish or make a finishing pass. When I say tactical physicality, that's that knowing when we talked about before with the outside center. Tactically being able to fill and stick a player. Tactically being able to say, let's have a soft edge and use that sideline as our extra defender. So being really intelligent, knowing when to be hard and knowing when to soften up. Willingness to be vocal and lead. A quiet fullback is really going to leave you defensively vulnerable. If they're not willing to lead, to be vocal, just like our 9s and 10s, the spine of the team in the backfield, we're gonna struggle. Quick to adjust. Again, we've got this big picture. So the fullback has some of the most largest amount and greatest diversity of information coming in. We need to take information in, we need to make decisions accordingly, we need to move information out and move pieces around accordingly. Being able to adjust to the picture in front of us or what happened in the first 20 minutes and then changing what we're doing in the next 20 minutes or the next half, it's very important, especially at fullback or halfbacks. Commitment and boldness. When we go, we go. When I'm filling that, when I'm inserting, I go. Make the decision, be decisive, go. Field vision and smart dynamic linking. Again, 15 is a position where their linking does change. If we're in a back three, where our wings are dropping, okay, the wings we're always linked with our fullback. But I need to be able to link with my fly half or inside center and take that ball out the back and attack or something like that. Being able to change that link, or being able to link with any defensive player on the field and tell them to get around the ruck or anything, that's a fullback job. Really needs to be ready, along with that scrum half in particular, to be dynamic in changing our links and who we're talking to, what we're telling them to do. We need to be able to link up with any player at any time if we're playing fullback. As far as rugby specific skills, run lines, kicking is a big bonus. A 15 who can't kick is going to leave you vulnerable. Open field tackling, because we're the last line of defense. Better be able to track, tackle, make the open field one-on-one. The finishing pass, because hopefully our hungry winger, I'm going to take the last defender as a fullback, and I'm going to put that hungry winger away. But being able to also, with my judgment, say, nope, it's my time. I finished this play. Being able to, with my judgment, and moving those defensive pieces around. Judgment is critical. Bad judge, a fullback who shuts out bad information, makes bad judgments, going to leave us vulnerable again. And then the ability to bring the best out of each other, of others. Because they're a megaphone, I mean, I would say the Scrumhalf, Flyhalf have megaphone aspects to them. Like being able to say the right thing to the right person with the right tone, it's probably going to be helpful. Like a captain, a good captain, they bring the best out in others. A good fullback gets you where you need to be, and then even if it's only verbally or the way they say it, they bring the best out of those around them. They make their wingers really good. All right, wingers, outside backs, good outside backs, really love good inside backs. Good wingers really love their good fullback. They see the largest amount of the field the majority of the time. They must be willing to move pieces around and should strive to improve those around them. They can facilitate and help others finish plays, but should be willing and able to do so themselves. Decisiveness required. Again, we're covering a lot of space. I've got a lot of information coming in. I need to put a lot more information out there. If I'm not decisive as a fullback, I'm going to struggle. And we as a team are going to struggle. All right, so if there's one thing you take from this, again, this was ideals. This is what I'm looking for in recruiting. This is what I'm looking for when I'm putting a team out on the field for a game. And this is what I'm looking to develop in my individual players. Every team is different. You know your players better than I do. So don't take any of this as gospel besides the big, like, we should work towards this. Or maybe put this piece, this piece fits well in this hole on the board. All right, no rugby player is an island. Rugby requires collaboration. Collaboration is easier with communication. Say it all the time, you can't over-communicate as a rugby team. The one exception being when the captain or coach is talking, or if they know our calls. Those are probably the only times where, okay, maybe if I know they know our calls, we should maybe be tidy about it. Play to the strengths of the individuals and the group. Sometimes the individuals need to sacrifice the number of tries they score, the impact they have in the game, to get the group result. If you can't be group result focused as a rugby player, you should probably go find a different sport, because this is collaborative. Rugby is about what we are doing, not necessarily what about I'm doing. I'm doing the best I can to get the best result for us. So, physical, mental, rugby skills combined to make or break your team efforts. Successful backlines work as a unit. All right. If we can't collaborate, if we don't link, if we don't work as a unit, a bunch of individuals are going to struggle to be a good team. All right. Tried to wrap it up. Sorry for the tech stuff. I probably should, if I do this again, I'd have these things come out one by one and add some effects to it. If you thought this was a really basic PowerPoint, it is. It's about the content, it's not about that. We've got like a solid 10 minutes if you've got questions.
So, you said decision making quite a bit.
Nope.
Pretty much everybody needs to be really decisive in the tackle. How do I go about coaching that at practices?
Coaching decisiveness. Well, players are different, like emotionally, everyone's a different individual. Upgrading rugby IQ is always going to help. So encouraging your players to just watch rugby hopefully is going to build them up. They'll feel more comfortable with decisions, and they'll, as their rugby IQ grows, they'll become more decisive. Also, giving them simple situations in which to succeed. Even a player who's been at their third practice, being able to give them a 2-on-1 and being able to make the right decision, that's going to build it up. So I would say giving them simple situations in which to be decisive and in which they can be successful being decisive, and then also upgrading rugby IQs. Other questions? Oh, quiet. I appreciate the good attention. Sorry if the PowerPoint sucked and I didn't know how to work the projector. Use what you have. Use the tools you have, and you know your team better than I do. All right? Have fun. Make sure that, I'll stress this always, the most important thing with rugby is a dangerous sport. So the number one thing is make sure we play as safely as possible. After that, especially when it comes to like weeks, months and stuff, sometimes we'll have a practice that sucks. But if we're stringing them together, man, if players aren't having fun for weeks at a time, that's a problem. So after being safe, making sure we're having fun as a group is really important. So make sure you as a player or as a coach, make sure your players in your unit, progressively, make sure fun is a part of it. Because after being safe, the next most important thing is if everyone's having fun, they're going to show up with the right energy. They're going to give the right effort. So make it fun. All right? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.